This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We've got a jam-packed show for you guys today. Going to try to crank through it pretty quickly as we've got a lot to cover, but not too much new in a sense. SMU gets a buzzer-beating win over Virginia. We'll talk about that basketball game last night as SMU avoided a devastating loss. And then some big recruiting news as Rhett Lashlee got out on the recruiting trail, but also the mid-year enrollees are here. And I was out at SMU to see them come through. And it's a great time to be at ontheponyexpress.com because the first junior day of 2025 for the 2026 class, yes, I am feeling older by the day as Jack is also now standing on his own. So things are moving quickly here. We've got recruiting classes in the 26, 27, 28 cycles to start paying attention to this spring. And also my son is standing. So yay for me, but the fun is over. He's now going to be moving around very, very quickly. But before we get into all of that, want to remind you guys, we are presented by our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com is the way for you to get around to all these ACC basketball games for SMU. Head down to South Beach on Saturday. StatusJet can get you there with a discount when you mention ontheponyexpress.com or code PonyUpACC. Go to statusjet.com, reach out to them today. It's worth a phone call. Go down there, enjoy the day in Miami or, a Friday night dinner somewhere. StatusJet can help you handle all of that and get there in style as well. So reach out to them for all these tough places to get to. Notre Dame is coming up in about a month, so you can fly right into South Bend if you would like, and do it with our friends at statusjet.com. They'll get you there with a level of luxury that you'd expect. Speaking of luxury, there was none of that in Charlottesville for SMU this time. The football team got treated with kind of an easy win for the most part this fall, and SMU was able to kick off ACC play in basketball with a win over UVA. But this time around, it came by the hair on the chinny chin chin of this SMU basketball team as Boopy Miller hit a three-point shot in the final seconds to send SMU off to Miami with a victory in hand. And this was an absolute stunner for the Virginia side of things. They were able to hang around this entire basketball game. SMU led by 2 at the half, and then it was dead even, 27-27 in the second half. And those final 9 points, the final 3 3-pointers of the game for SMU all fell, which really helped what was an awful night from beyond the arc from the Mustangs. But most importantly, it helped SMU improve to 13-4 overall, 4-2 in ACC play. And I think this is a game where you definitely can't take for granted winning on the road in ACC play. We saw SMU struggle at North Carolina. First, I would say, true road environment. This time around, SMU, got a taste of another good road environment at UVA, but they didn't have the normal offensive juice that they had. 54-52 was the final in a game that, Virginia found its footing from a defensive side of things. They, I believe, had allowed 3 straight games of over 80 points. So they found their footing in this one and have kind of been able to not necessarily right the ship. They're still a bottom tier ACC basketball team at this point, but 8-9 overall, 1-5 ACC play. Like they're finding a little bit of changes that kind of spark things. They put Ish Sharma into the lineup over the last week or so, and he's been playing well, but he did miss he made 2 free throws and then that allowed hit both ends of a 1-1. Yeah. I did watch the game. I just was kind of reading notes and that one caught me, but he really has kind of stepped up for this UVA team in a way, and he's still a young player. But Blake Buchanan had a double-double for UVA. But kind of my point of all that is SMU is still learning some of the ways that this grind works. Matt Cross, Boopie Miller, the only two with ACC experience. You've got BJ Edwards, who of course was on a Tennessee roster for earlier in his career, and there are some other bigger guys that have seen big environments. Johan Traore started at Auburn, but this is where I think you've got to give some kudos for SMU not completely laying down in the final moments. And I know that sounds silly against a team that's now 1-5 in ACC play, but it's hard. It's a hard, thing to do on the road in the ACC. And this is, somebody made the point on the board, and I completely agree with it, that this was the Duke game, like for SMU football, that this was for SMU basketball. Now, Duke was a bowl team. You could, much improved team under Manny Diaz. This is a team that is struggling under Ron Sanchez after Tony Bennett retired. But the tough environment, the team that is generally used to winning, and they had a bunch of new players, and they're finding their way now. But for SMU, they're a bunch of new players too, and I think that's why we see some of the inconsistency with this roster, with this performance. Now, SMU goes on the road to Miami. They can't lose that one. They're on the bubble in the NCAA tournament watch, and you can't lose games like this. And so it's imperative that SMU finds its offensive footing against the Hurricanes, who Jim Larinaga is going to retire at the end of this year. And there are just opportunities for this SMU team to kind of hang around that, I want to say, top middle of, like the top of the middle of the ACC. And if they can kind of keep winning the games that they're supposed to, at the very least, they're going to find themselves in true contention for the ACC or for the NCAA tournament, and obviously be playing in the ACC tournament with a chance to boost their resume even more. So SMU avoids a complete disaster on the road at UVA. Boopie Miller's shot falls. Chuck Harris had 12. Samet Yigitolu had 10 on 5 of 6 shooting, I'll add. Wasn't many free throws for SMU, but they were 3 of 7. So again, kind of something that they need to improve on overall and get back to where they were. They were 75% around that entering ACC play. It's not been good overall during the course of this kind of up and down run, where we've seen Duke and UNC take it to SMU, but you've also seen SMU take it to Georgia Tech and now get a win at UVA. It was the season low, obviously, for SMU scoring, and SMU has been able to hold UVA, which is not really an overall great accomplishment offensively, but defensively, SMU has been able to hold them to 51 and 52. So there isn't really a wide variety of what you're seeing UVA-wise scoring against SMU, and SMU obviously sweeps the regular season series. And at this point, I mean, you're almost wondering if UVA is going to make the ACC tournament. But look, I don't know what we're going to find out about SMU over the next really 2 weeks when it comes to their offensive prowess and how volatile it is. You can look very clearly at this schedule and say, well, okay, you see the talent of Duke, you see the talent of UNC, and you see what SMU is able to do against Georgia Tech and say, wow, really impressive. Can you find your more consistent footing? Because now 3 of your last 4 games, you're kind of underperforming offensively in a big way. And some of your key players are, Matt Cross didn't have his best stuff last night, had 6 points, I believe, or maybe just 6 rebounds. Let me try to find it. I thought he had 6 points though. No, he just had 6 rebounds. So a really kind of disappointing game for him offensively, but I thought defensively he was fairly good, considering he was one of the better rated guys out of the starting group. BJ Edwards, I thought, continues to kind of show some flashes. So what version of SMU are we going to get by the time this ACC regular season ends? I'm not sure, but I know that they have a little bit of grit to them to find different ways to win. And we've seen that now. We've also seen them kind of lose ugly in ACC play, which was kind of expected. You see that type of parity in college basketball. I mean, Ole Miss went into Alabama and beat them by 10 on the road. And just the other night. And then I believe it was Wake Forest who beat Stanford and came back and handled business in the dramatic seconds. And that game was being played around the time SMU UVA was. So, college basketball is weird. There's a select couple of teams right now that are really rolling. And then you also see some lopsided scores. But when you can come out on the road with a win in league play, I mean, that especially at a high major conference, that's really all that matters. Get out of there with your win, and then find other ways to boost your net and figure that aspect of it out. So SMU basketball gets a win. Wasn't pretty. Now they do turn their attention to Miami on Saturday on the road. Again, man, I wish I was going to, but maybe next time. But SMU does face the Hurricanes at 1 p.m. Central on ESPNU. So follow all our coverage on that one as SMU looks to continue its decent start to ACC play. All right, before we go any further, I want to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana is really stepping up, supporting SMU. He is one of those guys that you've got to look to when it comes to who's sponsoring SMU football on the radio, who's obviously supporting us at ontheponyexpress.com, and he's doing it. Reach out to him, 214-352-5656, or email him, markv@nwagencies.com. He can discuss your current rates, coverage, and where you may lack protection. And it is the right time to do it with insurance rates being all over the place in Texas. And Mark Villasana, an SMU alum, can help you out with that. We've had a lot of On the Pony Express subscribers reach out to him and come away impressed. So check him out, Northwest Insurance Agency, for all your insurance needs. All right, SMU basketball gets that game out of the way. They move on. Well, now, I mean, really, this is it. The transfer portal timing for SMU is really winding down because move-in week has started, and SMU did welcome multiple mid-year enrollees as well as transfers to campus on Thursday. And when it comes to what SMU has brought in, let me tell you, I was out there on Thursday morning. It was a little chilly, but was out there to see some of the guys roll in and was able to get eyes on, in particular, a few transfer additions on the defensive and offensive lines, and just wanted to talk about them. And I have full kind of takeaways that are going to go up at ontheponyexpress.com either tonight or first thing Friday morning. But you've got to look at what SMU's been able to add in the trenches, and I really think that there is a good amount of size that's been brought in. And I want to start with somebody who I think is really a shoe-in to start for SMU this season, and that is Addison Nichols, the Arkansas transfer who comes into SMU as somebody who you're going to look to as the starting center. And I mean, being able to start for Sam Pittman on the offensive line is no small feat. He's an experienced center who is going to be a really good replacement for Ja'Kai Clark. He'll have 2 years of eligibility remaining. I think that's the big thing with most of these guys that really stands out to me is that. And he just checked the size box. He was able to come in and look the part of a veteran who, I mean, quite honestly, looks ready for a college football season tomorrow. And couldn't be nicer. Finally got the chance to talk with him. He's a tough guy to get a hold of, much like a lot of these transfers are. He's just really excited about, working with Garen Justice and being able to lead that offensive line. So I thought from a size perspective, he's somebody that is really going to kind of wow you, because you go from Ja'Kai Clark, who squatty, plays with good leverage. But I think there are certain areas where SMU could have, center is a position that I thought Ja'Kai held down really well, and his veteran nature is a huge piece of that. I think Addison Nichols has a chance to be an all ACC player, and whether that be honorable mention first team, that depends on him. That's a lot of politics that go into that and just kind of notoriety and things like that, as we saw with Elijah Roberts not getting any ACC love on the all conference list. But when you look at him, I mean, physically, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's a man, and he is looks like he really should have a mortgage and maybe a couple kids by now. But he's going to bring a veteran presence, just a really solid maturity about him. And quite honestly, I mean, now that we work with Hayden Howerton all the time on this podcast and at ontheponyexpress.com, he has kind of that good-hearted leadership style and just kind of how he approaches everything. And he just seems like he really chooses his words wisely. So he is just starting out his SMU career. He has a long way to go to being a team captain and doing all the things and being as accomplished as Hayden was for SMU. But just his maturity really stuck out to me. And it'll complement really well with Josh Bates, who Joshua Bates comes in from Oklahoma. He was a spot starter and is going to be somebody who's going to battle. But I think he's kind of built like a keg, quite honestly. I mean, he just looks like he's going to have that ability to be physical in the run game. I don't have as much on him as far as pass protection and PFF and things like that. I really haven't dove down into that, and it's a good thing to do now that all these guys are signed and here is break all that down for you guys. But when I look at him, he looks like somebody who's going to be able to get in there and be physical in the run game. And we talked about last spring and off season when you looked at how SMU was revamping its offensive line. One of the things we told you guys last spring and into the summer was, well, without Marcus Bryant and Brandon Hickman, we felt like SMU was going to be a much better run blocking team. And I think it's safe to say, as much as you love Brashard Smith and the talent he has, check. SMU did that. And I think part of that was the ability to add size, or as Calvin Thibodeau likes to say, girth to the offensive line room, with a guy like Ja'Kai Clark getting into better shape, being able to play ultimately at Justin Osborne at guard. Obviously, he started out at center, and you had Savion Byrd on the left side is what it all settled out into being. You had PJ Williams on the right. You had Logan Parr, who's one of the best offensive linemen, in the conference at left guard. All of those guys are fairly well accomplished run blockers. And I think there is that sense now that as you learn and you gather more information, and Garen Justice is a consummate pro in terms of figuring out how to best approach the room and kind of what the future looks like for his offensive line room and what complements the offense best. I think we're seeing that come together a little bit with the size and that desire to bring in players of that size and that strength, and it's not guys that are 6'9", 350 pounds and things like that. It's guys who, if you're along the interior, you got a little width to you, and in a good way. And I think Josh Bates, as he gets into the strength and conditioning program, he'll tighten up a little bit. It is a point in his time where he entered the portal and has found his next spot. So there is that kind of, you're working out on your own thing, but that's what stood out to me when I saw him. And we know his mindset. He wants to be physical. He wants to be nasty, mean, all of those things. So Joshua Bates, Addison Nichols, I think the size overall there is going to continue to emphasize the ability to run the football and be physical. And I think that's something that, as you look at a Zion Nelson who checked in at SMU, who is going to have an opportunity to continue to take one more, stab at playing football on the offensive tackle spot. I mean, he's got size, it's there, and he's got that maybe body that's built for a little bit better pass protection situation than a Savion Byrd, who is, quite honestly, a guard and had to be out at tackle. And PJ Williams was on the left, now on the right, and PJ's uber athletic, and Savion is too, whether you want to think that or not after the the Clemson and Penn State games. I mean, those are two NFL guys that he was battling with all game long, especially a top 10 pick. But, when you look at what Zion Nelson can be, that's where SMU checked a box as far as upgrading the talent level at a particular need area for this offense. So Zion Nelson, he looks like kind of a big tight end. I mean, he is 6'5", and he's somebody who I think is ready for a fresh start. Wasn't really sure kind of if he really, I think wanted to even talk to me personally. But he has a good nature about him and knows this is his last opportunity. And it's nothing that he really could have controlled. It's just been injuries. So if you can shore that up from an offensive tackle pass protection side of things at left tackle, that's a way to, and if Zion Nelson hits, I mean, look out. This offensive line just completely got new blood in a sense. So I think this offense, you've got Addison Nichols. I mean, he is like like I said, I have high expectations for him. Josh Bates, he fits a really good role need there to continue to have guys that are physical and maybe give a little bit time to the younger guys coming in. But Zion Nelson is on paper, he has to be healthy, but Zion Nelson has an opportunity to be really, really strong in the pass protection side of things. Before we go any further on some other takeaways on the transfers, I do want to remind you guys that we are also presented by our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. AKMturfandgreens.com. Revamp your backyard today with $500 off your project using code PONYUP or mentioning on theponyexpress.com. Alex Carpenter and his team will have your backyard looking like an incredible oasis, or just do your entire yard of turf and take the maintenance and the lawn mowing and the weeds and all of that, take it out and throw it away. Because when you get this type of backyard setup, you'll be in good shape for the foreseeable future. So reach out to them today, info@akmturfandgreens.com. All right, on to the defensive line side of things. And again, the rest of this, got copious notes, all those things to break down at ontheponyexpress.com. But on the defensive line, I think one guy I want to highlight, and then you can read about the rest, is Eric Taylor. No, not the former head coach of on Friday Night Lights. And oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on the high school, but the Dillon Panthers. I'm more of a Friday Night Lights movie guy, but Eric Taylor comes in from Mississippi State. He did not play last year. Basically was out all season, not with injury. I think he just stepped away or didn't work out at Mississippi State, and moved on and entered the transfer portal. Found his way to SMU. If at least from my brief interactions, watching some of the other defensive linemen walk in, Eric Taylor is your Tank Booker type. That's what he could be. I mean, he looks the part of a nose tackle. Clog up the middle, stop the run, do all those things. He has been on an SEC roster for plenty of time. He started out at LSU, ends up going JUCO, then goes back and ends up at Mississippi State. And for him, he's got a chance to really get back on track here. And if he does, that's going to be a big key to the middle of this defense. So keep a close eye on him and what he's going to have a chance to bring to the table when it comes to the defense just overall, because he's really got a lot of size to him. I mean, he really is built like Tank. All right, let's move to the high school ranks real quick here. Javion Holiday and his teammate from Duncanville, Tyron Man Polly, did check in as well today. Plenty of others. You can read about it at ontheponyexpress.com for just $1. But Javion Holiday and Tyron Polly are probably two of the most mature freshmen that I've been around. Granted, they've been in the spotlight for quite some time now, playing at Duncanville, playing on a team that is as highly regarded as the Panthers are. And when you look at what they'll be able to do now is they'll be able to get into the weight room and get stronger. I think that's what stands out about both these guys is Jay Holly's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism, and what he's got an opportunity to do is be able to start that process of getting bigger, stronger, working with Coach Grizz in the weight room, and being able to start that process of being, I think one of the top cornerback prospects long term for this team that they have. And then you've got Tyron Polley, who I think physically could factor in early on. I don't think there's a doubt about that. I just think that safety is a position where Scott Simons is a little bit more eager to find someone that just is very mature. And I think Tyron Polley's got that opportunity to be that for SMU. So this is going to be a fun secondary to watch. They're reunited with Lamadrick Spencer, their junior college teammate, or their high school teammate who went to JUCO and is now back at SMU. That's going to be something that's fun to watch. That's a really close-knit group, and I'm excited to watch everything play out with them. And just a reminder, guys, to head up 75 to McKinney if you're here in Dallas, or go to thomasautogroup.com and check out their entire selection of pre-owned and new vehicles, and mention ontheponyexpress.com when you head up there, or talk to somebody on the phone and get employee pricing on those pre-owned and new vehicles. So check them out, support an SMU alum. The Thomas Auto Group will take care of you, and learn about the Thomas Promise today. All right, Rhett Lashlee did hit the road recruiting, and trust me, when the head man goes out, I don't want to give out too much, but there's one guy that I got to talk about with you guys today, and that is Colton Nussmeier, the 4-star quarterback, top 20 overall prospect in the country, the nation's number 3 quarterback, who's got offers from all over, really. The little brother of LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, who I know very well, is one of the top prospects in America. He's got offers from LSU. He's got offers from Ole Miss, TCU, and plenty of other programs. And he is, obviously early on in his recruiting process, 2027 prospect. But Rhett Lashlee did swing by Flower Mound Marcus to check in on him on Thursday after getting everybody from the early enrollees, the mid-year enrollees, checked in and welcomed them at lunch. Was able to swing through Marcus, and he can't talk with him because he's a 2027, but he can, watch him work out and do all those things and make a stop. So a big visit as SMU gets going on this 2027 class. And I think this 2026 quarterback class, watch for 2 quarterbacks, but in 2027, this is where you look to make a splash if you're SMU. And De'Ara King and Rhett Lashlee, they are in that business of big game quarterback hunting. That's why they went out and got Tyler Van Dyke to come in to this roster. And if you've been on theponyexpress.com, I don't know what to tell you, but one of our good friends over at ESPN, David Hale, reported on Thursday, which is what we've been saying, that he talked to Rhett Lashlee, and Rhett Lashlee said, we didn't bring him in to be a starter or a backup. Well, why do you bring him in then? It's what we've been saying it on theponyexpress.com. He might not be ready to go in 2025 after tearing his ACL at Wisconsin, but what he is going to work towards is getting stronger and ready to go for what would be his final season of college football in 2026. And if it's at SMU, great. If he's able to compete for a starting job at SMU, even better. But guess what he will be able to do? Work with a coaching staff that he trusts over the next year in terms of his recovery and continuing to stay sharp, and then take his stab at a starting job in 2026. If Kevin Jennings balls out in 2025 and leaves, SMU's already brought in a veteran quarterback in that case to compete with Keldrick Luster, with Ty Hawkins, with Tyler Aronson, and whoever comes in that 2026 class. Granted, that freshman quarterback won't be really involved, but you have to play this game with the quarterback room. You can't count on anything. You can't count on somebody coming in and poaching a quarterback over the next year or so. I mean, that's the reality of it. It is free agency at its peak is the quarterback position. So I'm not saying anybody's leaving. I'm not saying that because of a breadcrumb that I'm going to point back to later on when something happens, but and that's the truth. But the reality is you want to stockpile as many arms and arm talent at that position as you can. And SB obviously trusts Tyler Van Dyke in a big way. They're very high on Keldrick Luster. They obviously invested a lot in getting Ty Hawkins as well. Tyler Aronson is somebody that they're still developing, but when you have a chance to bring in a guy that started as many games as Tyler Van Dyke, you have to. So Rhett Lashlee, hitting the road recruiting. Again, subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1 for your first month to get all the details on where he was at on Thursday and where he's going the rest of this contact period. SMU is moving in their transfers this weekend, getting that all finalized, and basically that's it. Then we wait to the spring window. We start breaking down all of these visits that the coaches are making in the high school ranks as SMU turns its attention to 2026. So don't miss out at ontheponyexpress.com. Again, subscribe for just $1. Look, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We're going to get back to it with Hayden Howerton and also breaking down more basketball. Want to do some things with Dean Ralski as well. So make sure you keep it locked at ontheponyexpress.com for more details on all of that and more podcasts on top of that. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the pod, and we'll catch you guys next time on another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.